Everybody Wants to Be My Enemy by Nyan Saketsu, Chapter 9. Hesitation is defeat. People are won not by words, but action. Hesitation is defeat. Powder was a quick study. Naruto wasn't sure why that made him proud, but it did all the same. So damn proud. In the weeks that followed, his students soaked up everything he taught like a living sponge, training, weights, summoning, shadow clones, sage mode. She threw herself into each with singular determination. Did she struggle? Yes. Did she falter? Definitely. Did she overcome? Most certainly. Every task he set her, she took with minimal complaint, but maximum questions. He soon discovered it wasn't enough to see a jutsu not for her. She had to understand it, dissect it, pick it apart. She didn't just want to learn from him. She went above and beyond. For perhaps that reason alone, he continued to teach her. Her willingness to work won his respect. Her refusal to give up admiration. It didn't matter what he taught her. She kept at it. Power didn't simply want to learn. She needed to, and that need drove her harder than he ever could. It also made her damn sneaky when she wanted to be. She was good and getting better every day, but she still had a ways to go before she'd catch up to him. As such, Naruto didn't deign to look up when her shadow fell over his. He kept walking, even as his sixth sense walked at him. His little minion had chosen her point of ambush. Well, this particular morning, leaping from a misty rooftop, just as he entered, striking him with the sun at her back. A sound stratagem. Alas, there were a few flaws to said stratagem. First, he'd sensed her coming. Second, he'd heard her. Last but not least, Rasengan. He didn't bother to counter her. His head swayed to the right and let the swirling spear whistle harmlessly past, then her body with it. Arms still fully extended from the lunge, he saw her eyes widen, first in surprise, then pain as he slapped an open palm in her elbow. The limb creaked but held even as her jutsu guttered. Impressive, most impressive, but she wasn't a shinobi yet. A knee smashed into her small body, launching her into a brick wall. Wedging her there, he knew she could take it. A hand slammed down just beside her head, drawing a yelp from his student. The other rose and gently chopped her on the forehead. How many times do I have to tell you? He tutted softly as she pouted up at him. Don't shout when you're about to attack. It ruins the element of surprise. She squirmed, still stuck in the wall. But it sounds cool. His red eye began to twitch. Cool, she says. Come on, Powder. Kerma rumbled a laugh. You weren't so different once yourself. Maybe so. The one-armed shinobi heaved a sigh. A golden claw burst the stump, tore her free from the wall, set her down on both feet. Oh, you want cool? He wagged a finger at her. Your body will be cold and dead if an opponent catches you pulling a stump like that. Potter flinched, looked down, and scuffed a shoe against the street. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. He patted her forehead. Be better. I know you can. He'd spread through her cheeks. Can we keep trying? Naruto didn't answer. Instead, he waited while she got her breath under control. Dragging herself upright and thumbed a line of blood from her lips, her eyes gleamed, not with anger but determination, a need to prove herself, but also something more. She made no move to attack, almost as if she were waiting for something. He realized what she wanted soon thereafter. You're getting better. Good job, Powder. I'm proud of you. Her face lit up, and she made a police noise as she bounced in place. I can go another round. She really could, couldn't she? Such a stubborn girl, this willy little apprentice of his. All right. Naruto crooked a hand forward. Remember, hesitation is defeat. And Powder grinned. Good to know. She was still speaking when the street ruptured beneath his feet. A blond brow quirked, looking down now as twin hands burst forth and grabbed him by the ankles. Yanked, he didn't budge. They tugged again, and still he remained immovable. A foot rose and stomped down, dispelling the shadow clone she tried to use against him. Nice try. He clapped his hands, congratulating her. But I'm using a jutsu to increase the gravity of my body. You'll have to try a bit harder. Razor wind lashed at his back. He dropped flat a second too late and lost a few string of hair for it. Surprise gave way to confusion, then bloomed into baffled surprise. How did you learn that jutsu? He frowned her way. I only told you about it once. Powder grinned impatiently, wholly at her ease. Practice? That settled it. Girl was a bloody savant. Still, you're wide open. His fist slammed into her chest. No, A plume of smoke, another shadow clone. Huh. She'd learned her lesson after the last session. He ducked a sweeping kick from behind, caught her ankle, and levered her into a wall. She hit it in a handstand, inhaled mightily, and spat fire in his face. He laughed, warding it away with a good arm. Good. Keep your body reinforced with chakra at all times. Easy for you to say. She kicked off the wall, stumbling a little, then finally found her balance. I can barely move with these stupid weights. Good. Good, Powder howled. Just think how fast you'll be when they finally come off. She flipped him off. He laughed and tossed her hair, earning a fearsome scowl. When will I unlock my bloodline? You're assuming you have one? Really, it was a toss-up. Sometimes bloodlines manifested randomly, others were hereditary. He wouldn't be surprised if hers was related to explosions of some sort. Sure, great, because that was exactly what Son needed. A wild little girl with a case of the zoomies running around blowing things up willy-nilly. I know I do. Honestly, her pout was adorable, so much so that it drew him out of his muddling thoughts. Just you wait. I'll get even stronger once I find it. Strong enough to protect you and Vander and Vi. Naruto finished with a knowing smile. Her jaw clicked shut. I didn't say that, but you were thinking it. Don't read into it, old man. She looked away with a huff, arms crossed before her chest. Adorable. Must protect. I'm doing all the reading. She's your sister. Powder refused to turn his way. Sisters don't hurt each other. I'm sure you didn't mean to back then. She's just jittery around you. Make up with her. She bit her lip. Finally, the dam broke. That's not the only thing, is it? She scowled at him when he quirked a blonde brow. She wants chakra. She wants to be better than me. It's not fair. Is that so? He knew she was grasping at straws. It didn't stop him. Well, too bad. I'm not going to give it to her. People are won not by words, but action. She hasn't proven herself to me, and in truth, he wasn't sure if I would be able to, not with an attitude like that. It'll take a lot to convince me. You mean it? Cross my heart and hope to stick a needle in your eye. She finished with a giggle, hope flashed in her eyes. You'll keep training me then? Naruto hid a smile behind one hand and gently cuffed her head with the other. For now, brat. Her smile was too pure. Then a faint tremor ran through the streets, cutting her short. It was soon followed by an odd, muffled noise, then a curious ringing. Shots echoed in the distance. Yet another muffled noise went up, and this one, Naruto knew well. It was the sound of an explosion. He craned his neck back, searching for the source, saw the smoke, knew the direction it came from. Realization dawned, and it was an ugly thing indeed. His heart sank into his stomach. No, someone had hit the last drop. They found Vander's body first. He wasn't far from the smoldering wreckage. They soon saw why. The blackened burns on his back told a story all their own. He lay sprawled over Clacker and Milo's stunned forms, must have shielded them from the worst of it. Against all odds, both boys were still breathing, out cold but alive. Naruto wasn't sure if he could say the same for the big oaf. Powder shrieked, No, no, he can't be. He's alive. Naruto touched a hand to his neck, sighed in relief when he found his pulse. Hurt, but alive. Where's Vi? He craned his neck back. Don't sense her anywhere nearby. Who did this? He rounded on the crumbling ruin that had once been their home, face balled at their sides. I'll tear them apart. Powder. I will. She rounded on him with wild eyes. There were good people in there. Someone just blew them the hell up. Why aren't you angry? He stared her into submission until finally she looked away with a scowl. I am angry. Furious, really. But anger won't change the fact that we don't know who did this. Something shifted through the hazy smoke. Rubble shifted. Naruto sensed them a moment later, heard the gunshots and the screams that followed. No, her temper blazed. They should know better. The enforcers most certainly didn't. The moment they laid eyes on them, they raised their weapons. There they are! One of them, a big brood towering head and shoulders above the rest, raised his rifle. Blast them! A gun barked. Powder wasn't quite quick enough and took a slug to the shoulder. She yelped and skittered behind him. Naruto's world didn't do red. That implied some measure of control, of reason. Absently, he laid a hand on her wound and healed it, muttered softly, Stay with Vander. Then he stepped in and swung. The first gunman died as he stove their head in. Another pitched back as a Rasengan drilled through his torso. Then he was among them, and there was no time for anything but rage. Hesitation is defeat. He'd said those words earlier. Now he lived them, and he didn't hesitate. You think? A roaring roundhouse hurtled an enforcer away. You can hurt my apprentice. Another waited, and he rounded on them in turn. Are you feeling angry, humiliated? Is that it? He caught their fist, snatched them up by the ground, and slammed them down into their fellows. Idiot! You don't know what humiliation is! Bone twisted and then broke as he stomped down in a rage. I'm trying to help this place, but you're all making this so damn difficult. More unloaded on him for what little good it did. He raised his gaze in the smoke. Blue eyes burned baleful red. Why won't you die? Someone gibbered and tried to reload. Naruto never knew who. Didn't care, frankly. A red shuriken sparked in his palm. He threw it that way. The whimper stopped. Honestly, has this ever worked? He sighed softly, wounds healing, the damage undone before their very eyes. Your kind never learn. Or was it Marcus that put you up to this? Even in his cold rage, he could still think. Reason. Prisoner. He needed a prisoner. His arms caught an unlikely enforcer in a bruising bear hug, broke his spine, threw him aside to question later. But that's all right. Drunk. Class is now in session, and I'm the teacher. Another victim folded over as a fist slammed through their torso. They hurtled up into the air, only to cry as a hand caught their ankle, yanked them down, and whipped them into the ground. The street creaked and began to crumble, leaving a decidedly human-shaped impression behind. Open your textbooks to chapter 9. Naruto's boots stomped down on their chest, grinding them deeper into the dirt as he leered down at them. Also known as the pages of pain, a giant golden claw reached back and gripped a crumbling building, damaged by the blast, tore it free from its foundations. They looked up just in time to see 10 tons of stone crash down on their heads. They died screaming. Previews. How many dead? Half a dozen. Your boys figured something was wrong. Milo and Clagger are missing. And Vi vanished last night. You don't think you said no one would get hurt. I did, and I kept my word. You have a choice to make, girl. I can't make it for you. Only you can. What is it you want? Power, safety, or family? Well, what will it be? Everyone keeps calling me that. Jinx, Jinx, Jinx. Powder exhaled slowly. I've had enough. Come on. She spread her arms and walked forward. Come get jinxed. She stepped forward. Hands grabbed her. Her fist flew back upwards. So did her attackers. You're only one man. Maybe so, but where you see one, I see many. Screams pierced the night. It's over. You can't win. He smiled. I already have. I want every gun you have focused on that man. I don't care who sees. Drop the damn building on him. If that's what it takes, kill him. Kill him now. Only monsters deal in absolutes. I'll do what it must. A tired sigh pierced the foggy gloom. You will try, my old friend. You call this a wound? He walks through the doorway. This isn't a wound, barely even a scratch. His victim pitched backwards, struggling to hold their bleeding face together. Let me show you what a real injury looks like, feels like, sounds like. Come here, I'll carve it into your corpse. Get up, rise, damn you. If you don't get up right now, everyone is going to die. Nothing will change. Get up. His arms braced against the ground, pushed, and the rubble gave way. He was unarmed, his hands empty, his back riddled with wounds he'd taken protecting them, one arm hanging loosely at his side, so much blood, yet still he stalked forward. Oh gods, she could see right through him. How was he still moving? Bravado or sheer willpower? Had to be. He'd collapse any second now, but he didn't. He threw his head back and snarled. The sound was dark and painful, filled with so much hurt and regret and death, so much death, like a fell hound howling at the moon. I can do this all day. End of chapter 9. Everybody Wants to Be My Enemy by Neon Sangetsu. Chapter 10. Bad Luck. Luck! Luck has nothing to do with it. People are won not by words, but action. And what will yours be? I wonder, what will you do? Silco. Bad luck. We'd need to strike back. Words buzzed at her. Eye for an eye. Like a cloud of flies, a sea of stinging gnats, an endless animal blade that just wouldn't shut up. So too did the people of Zon rage against what they'd lost. Decades of simmering anger had built to this moment, this day, this afternoon. There could be no stopping it now. The bullet was loosed, the genie at the star, the storm unleashed. Tooth for a tooth. Savika hated it. Anger was all well and good when focused, channeled towards a goal. But this was pure unfocused wrath. How was anyone supposed to think in this mess? Yeah, evil for evil. Naruto must have thought the same because he pinched the bridge of his nose and exhaled in a long, drawn-out sigh. He listened to the anger, let it all roll over him, wash off his back, raised the mug, drank deeply from it as she looked on, draining it down to the last drop. Then, slam! He brought the pewter mug crashing down on the bar with so much force that it actually shattered. An awful crack filled the air. Sharpened shards bit into his hand, bleeding it, but he didn't seem to care for them, or rather, he didn't care about things, but not this, clearly not this. He sat back and leaned against the bar, facing the lot of them, arms propped up against the counter. It made him seem taller for it somehow, like a king looking upon his people, and when he spoke, they listened. Quiet! The crowd, nearly 100 strong, fell silent. He rounded them all up, gathered them together, and brought them here for God's knew what. Even now, the last drops smoldered around them, wounded but not dead, despite Piltover's best efforts to make it so. A good portion of it still stood up, but the building itself had been hollowed out, left scarred and charred. Savika hoped someone would rebuild it someday, but it wouldn't be her. She'd never been good at building things, only breaking. And now it looked like she'd be doing it again because the kid had that look in his eyes again, the same that had seen her following him that day. Only now he looked older, colder. Something had hardened in him. Savika wasn't sure if it was a good thing. She'd seen the enforcers' bodies. At least Grayson hadn't been among them. Murdering some mooks was one thing, but offering the head enforcer. Yeah, that wasn't going to end well. The crowd grew restless, now to raise an arm. They fell silent anew. She could see Powder looking at him, waiting for him to make his choice, the right choice. She wondered what it might be. I feel your pain. His voice echoed throughout the Carnal house that the last drop had become. But Vander and our wounded come first. Once we've taken care of them, put our dead to rest, we'll move forward. An anxious ripple ran through the crowd. No, Civica amended. The mob, they were all of a spark from going up in a frenzied flame. To hell with the old man and his brats. A burly thug with a shaved head pulled forward. Civica glimpsed an eye patch, couldn't remember the name of its owner. His time is over. We need blood and we need it now. Someone kicked his knee, bringing him low. A knife caressed his throat, and his words died with a wither of a wheeze. Say that again. He didn't. Bastard said something else. You damn dirty jinx. This was your doing, wasn't it? Everyone knows your bad luck. Civica Naruto winced as one. Powder hated that name. Even after her training, she treated it like a curse. Powder exhaled slowly, closed her eyes. Civica counted to three. Crunch. The thug toppled backwards with a yowl, clutching his bloody nose. Everyone keeps calling me that. Jinx, jinx, jinx. Powder spat in his face and stomped down on his chest, kicking him away. I've had enough. Come on then. She spread her arms and walked forwards at him. Come, get jinxed. Why, you little? Hands grabbed her as he surged to his feet. Her fists flew upwards, so did her attacker. Up he went, then down as gravity reasserted itself with a bloody vengeance. An awful crack filled the air. Ouch! Sounded like a broken collarbone. No one came to his aid. Savika didn't much blame them, not after a display like that. Powder looked livid. She couldn't even blame the kid, not with her family in that state. Nato sighed. Powder, enough. I know you're stressed, but he's learned his lesson. Fine. She disengaged with a scowl. Blue eyes swung back to the mob. Forgive my apprentice. He didn't sound sorry in the least. She's a bit overeager. He climbed to his feet, walked to the wounded man. Aren't we all? He laid a hand on the man's arms, hauled him to his feet now with the golden claw, ignoring the gasp of pain that followed. Yeah, sure, think, boss. The bruiser groaned. Whatever you say. Didn't mean nothing by it. One more thing. Naruto slugged him fast and hard, so quickly that Savika didn't even truly realize that when he done it until the bastard pitched backwards, spitting teeth and blood. He didn't stop there. Even as he fell, the blonde caught him by the jacket, reeling him from the second blow, then a third. Only then did he drop his victim. Poor Saw dropped in a quivering, whimpering heap. Naruto pivoted. If any of you ever, and I mean ever, call Powder a jinx again, she'll be the least of your worries. Blazing red eyes rounded on the rest. They'd been blue a moment before. Are we clear? muffled assent and answered. It was then that she understood. Powder was the dagger in the dark. She was the velvet hammer, the one that spoke softly, but could and would squash you flat. Savika felt a little thrill shoot through her. This was what a leader looked like, the leader that Vander would have been, yet empathetic in a way Silco yet wasn't. A blend of both, a man balanced on a knife's edge. Those who might listen were all well and good, but those who didn't, they paid for it, as it should be. I wept. Where had she gone wrong? It wasn't supposed to be this way. You lied. You said no one would get hurt. She'd done it now. There could be no taking it back. I did. He gazed at her. The man who had drawn her into this enticed her with his promises, his words of acting over Vander and Naruto's inaction. He leaned out of the dark, exposing himself behind his desk. And I kept my word. Marcus and his men acted and had no part, and I had no part in this. This despair sparked in her chest. But even so, you benefit from it. A shrug. I won't deny that. Why? He held up a hand, silent her protests. You have a choice to make, girl. I can't make it for you. Only you can. What is you want? Power, safety, or family? Well, what will it be? Vi buried her head in her arms to hide her tears. She failed, just like everything else. I didn't want this. None of it. A hand settled on her back. None of us did, child. We can only avenge them. She glared at him through her open fingers and made her decision. A fool in charge of fools. Not to suppose there was some wicked irony to be had in that. He hadn't wanted to take control of Zahn in Vander's absence, but what choice did he have? It was either this or let them run wild, rampage in the streets, try to cross the bridge themselves. They could try, they'd failed. They'd be hundreds dead by dawn, more blood on his hands, so he done the only thing he could, made the only choice available to him. Maybe it would restore peace and order, maybe it wouldn't. He wasn't sure of anything anymore. I am. You did the right thing. Did I, Kurma? He sighed. Doesn't feel like it. In the end, he'd taken up residence in Vander's old office. This was something a humble room, all things considered, painted in faded shades of brown and green, the colors of life and empathy, a chamber that projected strength and as much as humility. Light from a blue glass window shone through out onto a white desk and chair, followed by a plush red couch beyond it. He didn't much like the latter, but the position projected strength, and that was what he needed right now. A Spartan enough for his needs, given he would be using it for long. Vander would wake up, the boys too. They had to. Someone knocked at the door. He sighed. Come in. Savika slipped inside, closed the door behind her. The kid ain't with you. I told her to take a nap. He doubted Powder would listen, but she needed a chance to cool her head. So did he. He'd set a poor example back in the last drop. Well, out with it. He could feel her staring at him, waited for his words, the words he had to say, the question he needed to ask. How many are dead? About half a dozen. Each word hurt him. Could have been worse. The last drop wasn't the only place that was hit. Others were, almost simultaneously. She dragged out a chair and sprawled in it before his desk. Your clones figured something was wrong before most of the blast went off. Also, more bad news, more bad luck. Would it ever end? Well, out with it. Her face screwed up in a grimace. Milo and Clagger are missing. Naruto reared back behind the desk. He did not have been expecting that, and vanished last night. Hey, you don't think she? Naruto was beginning to. The thought sickened him. Was there something else you wanted? Someone actually. She slapped a piece of paper down on his Vander's desk, all but nailing the photo where there with a knife. I think you know what we need to do. He considered it. Frown. You think Silco's behind this? She shrugged. Could be. He's got the motive. No, he shook his head. I don't think this was him. Silco didn't seem the sort to bomb his own people just to force them into action. Not like this. No, there was something else at work here. But what? Or who, for that matter? Marcus? Was he truly that reckless? Maybe he was. Maybe he wasn't. Those tactics felt too heavy-handed even for him. Did an under sheriff really have that much pull? Marcus then, his second didn't waver. You've made your fair share of enemies down here. She wasn't wrong. Really, it's Vi I'm worried about. She popped open her flank and drank. Vander's kid. You said it yourself. She grunted when she offered it to him and drank deeply. The burn cup sent to him. She disappeared before the attack. They might have her. Savika winced. The girl hates Piltover. I know. No, she slapped a hand down on the knife, driving it deeper. You don't. You think you do, but you haven't heard the full story. Five firm fingers curled around it, yanking it free. And forces killed her and Potter's parents years ago. She'd been hating them ever since. I'm told Powder was too young to truly remember what happened, but that kid, she saw it all. Naruto felt a migraine coming on, sharp, angry, and full of pain. Shit, he'd known the city had done something to wrong her, but not this. He knew where hatred like that could lead. He'd seen it before so many times in his world. If Vi felt this was justified, if no one was listening to her, if she wasn't getting her way, to whom would she go? Never mind that. What legends would she go to? Savika said it before he could. If she's not here, then there's a good chance she's gone to him. A sore taste flooded his mouth. I'm aware. You don't have to tell me. She leaned forward. What are you going to do about it? An idea dawned. Something stupid. Define stupid. He told her. Savika scoffed. You're cracked. Yep. His head kicked the desk. Has to be me, huh? Of course, she thumbed his back. Someone else might have gotten it wrong. Ha! He scoffed, the sound hoarse even to his own ears. All right, here's what I need you to do for me. Previous, there was a gun to his head. Naruto sighed. If you think something like that will kill me, you're sorely mistaken. Only monsters deal in absolutes. I'll do what I must. A tired sigh pierced the foggy gloom. You will try, my old friend. That outfit looks awful. It's only temporary, and I need it for what I'm about to do. He tousled her hair. I'm going to take responsibility for this, for all of it. She knew what he was going to say next. I can help. Don't tell me to stay here. He winked. Wouldn't dream of it, kid. You with me? Till the end. Nada tugged up his hood. Together, they vanished into the shadows. Hands up! Nada held his up with a smile. Hello, hello. Is Grayson in? I'd like a word. I finally found you, you little shit. You made a fool of me. I'll make you pay. Powder quirked about. Deckard, right? Scram. I don't have time for it. The boy tipped a vial back and drank. His muscles bulged, body twisting. Die! You're my sister. Choose, Powder. What will your answer be? End of chapter 10.